Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. I started my reading week with Taiwan Travelogue by Shuang-zi, translated from the Mandarin by Lin King. This is a novel about a novel. In 1938, the Japanese novelist Aoyama Shizuko decided to spend a year in Taiwan. Aoyama's first novel was quite successful, and there was a film adaptation. This gave her a certain level of prominence, and she was invited by the Japanese colonial government in Taiwan to come to the island to present a series of lectures to various high schools and women's groups. While Aoyama was on the island, she was assigned or takes on an interpreter and personal assistant named Ong Hien. Let me go. Well, I'll get to that in a second. And so these two women travel all across Taiwan over the course of several months, eating copious amounts of food and navigating an increasingly uncomfortable relationship that could be friendship, could be something more. And so the novel ends with something of a reconciliation before Aoyama returns to Japan. So one thing to note about the novel first is the history of Taiwan. So Taiwan, sometime in the 16th or early 17th century, was conquered by a European power. Sometime after that, in the late 16th or early 17th century, the Ming Dynasty, I believe, drove the Europeans out. And then when the Qing conquered the Ming in the later 17th century, the Qing took over Taiwan. In the 1890s, I believe, Japan won a war against the Qing, and as part of the territorial exchanges, Taiwan was transferred to the Japanese, who then began to colonize the island, which would last for around 50 years until 1945, when Japan was defeated in World War II, and Taiwan was transferred to the Republican government of China, which, after their defeat in the Chinese Civil War, they retreated to Taiwan. So this novel takes place during the heyday of Japan's occupation of Taiwan. The novel is presented as a novel within a novel. So the bulk of the story is a novel, like an autobiographical novel, written by the Japanese author Aoyama Shizuko. However, the novel itself is then presented as the second Mandarin translation of this novel by Shuang-zi. The first translation of the novel is in fact done by Miss Ong, who let me see if I can find it. Okay, there's the Mandarin version. Oh, yeah, that would be useful. Okay. So the translators, she has three names. One is, I think, her name in Hoklo or Hokkien, one of the two dialects of Taiwan, which would be Ong Xian Ho. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering these pronunciations. Then her the Mandarin version of her name is Wang Qianho. And then in the Japanese version is O Chizuru. So throughout the novel, Aoyama calls her Chi-chan. And so this novel looks at this relationship and its hidden fault lines that Aoyama just never really captures until or figures out until it has to be explicitly spelled out to her what she did. And it is brilliant. I really enjoyed this novel. It was a ton of fun to read, especially how the novel, as written by Aoyama, is sort of her excoriating herself and apologizing in perhaps one of the few ways she knows how to Ong at the end. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So this novel won the National Book Award for Translated Literature in 2024 and is currently shortlisted for the 2026 International Booker Prize. I have not yet read the rest of the shortlist, so I'm not entirely sure where it would stack up. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it wins. So I read Taiwan Travelogue on Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday and into Monday, I read The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. This is a novel about mothers and daughters. In the late 1940s, 4 Chinese women who have immigrated to the United States have come together to form a Joy Luck Club where they gather to eat good food, have good conversation, and play mahjong. And over the course of the decades, they each have families and have a hard time communicating and being understood by their daughters. And understanding and communicating with their it goes two ways. So the 8 women who sort of form the bedrock of this novel are okay. So the mothers are So the mothers are Su Yuan Wu, En Mei Su, Lindo Zhang, and Ying Ying St. Clair. The daughters that get the focus are Jing Mei, Jun Wu, Rose Su Jordan, Waverly Zhang, and Lena St. Clair. So the novel is told in 4 parts. The first part is of the mother's girlhood in China. And then the second part is the daughter's childhood in the United States. And the beginnings of conflicts between mothers and daughters for the most part. The third chapter then is the adult daughters coming to a rapprochement, something of an understanding with their mothers, and vice versa. And then in the final part, revisits the mothers when they are older, but for the most part still in China. Throughout the novel, though, there is a main sort of plot line, and that is Jing Mei's relationship to her mother, Yuan, who died before the novel begins. And she takes her mother's place in the Travelogue Club. And so this is, in part, the story of Yuan as an older... that her story initially is she's a bit older than the others. And her story begins during the Japanese invasion of China and her abandoning her twin babies when she's fleeing from a major city that is coming under attack. And Jing Mei gradually, the two working their issues out. And then Jing Mei traveling to China to meet her sisters, and also traveling with her father to meet his aunt. And so, of the 8 women, of course, Yuan is dead, so Jing Mei takes over her sections in the 1st and 4th parts of the novel. I am of a very split mind about the Travelogue Club. On the one hand, I really enjoyed reading it, particularly the American set sections. But I also think the novel is rather disjointed, given that the focus is on these 8 women, that none of them really get the opportunity to shine or really get looked at in all that much depth. I thought a lot of it was rather shallow. I also thought the Chinese set sections were a little too exoticized. That there were certain elements of it that I didn't particularly care for. Is the best way I can say that. And there is a bit of repetition. There are instances where a character uses their antagonist's superstition to get out of an unfortunate situation. And Rose's marriage and Lena's marriage are also rather too similar. So that also rather bugged me. So, I mean, I like the novel, but I think there are quite a few flaws. I don't know if maybe have the novel being more linked short stories, but not necessarily coming together at the end, or maybe more focus on Yuan and Jing Mei, and having that story be emphasized while the rest of the cast being supporting characters might have worked better. I don't know, but I do think at some point in the future I will be coming back to the Travelogue Club to settle my thoughts on it. And I read the Travelogue Club Sunday and Monday. Tuesday, I had issues. So on Wednesday and Thursday, I read In the Absence of Men by Philippe Besson, translated from the French by Frank Wynne. So In the Absence of Men is set in the second year of, or third year of World War I. The main character is Vincent, a young man born with the 20th century. He is 16. He is incredibly beautiful. When the novel begins, he forms a friendship with Marcel Proust, the great French author of the early 20th century. He also begins a passionate, week-long love affair with a soldier on leave named Arthur, who is the son of Vincent's governess. And so the first part of the novel, which is told from Vincent's point of view, is the story of the beginnings of these friendships and sexual relationship. The second part is told in letters from Vincent to Marcel and to Arthur, and then their letters to Vincent. And then in the third part is the narrative style is similar to the first, although in this case, Vincent is talking to Arthur's mother and learning about her confession and the ending. So much like with the Travelogue Club, I have a radically variant opinion about this novel. I love the first part. Philippe Besson can capture the nostalgia, the magic, the joy of first gay love like nobody's business. He is great at that. The problem is the end. So the first part that I read on Wednesday was great. It was magical. But the second reading, the second and third parts just fell apart. Where how the Vincent in the first part transforms into the Vincent of the letters. I don't quite see it. Although, admittedly, the Vincent of the first part, I don't know, could he have ever been real? And then how it ends, it's just, what the hell? So, I really don't know what to make of this. But having read Lie With Me, that he can, again, capture the nostalgia of first gay love beautifully, but the rest of the narrative doesn't quite work out. So I suspect my June reading plan is probably going to feature 2 novels by Philippe Besson. I really do need to reread Lie With Me because it's been a few years since I read it, and I do want to read The Summer Boy, which is his forthcoming novel. Although I'm not entirely sure how or where it fits in with his overall oeuvre. Because unfortunately, whoever is editing his Wikipedia page is an idiot. But enough of that. So that's what I read over the course of this reading week. So on Tuesday, I had originally planned to read from Sunflower Splendor, because my idea was to, once I finished the novel, I would read some poetry as a palate cleanser. Unfortunately, I don't know if I was having I was having a mental day on Tuesday, so I don't know if it was my mental state or I just really am not getting on with this book. So I decided to go ahead and set Sunflower Splendor, and a reread of Words as Grain by Duo Duo, translated from the Mandarin by Lucas Klein, aside and come to them at some point in the future. So my reading plan for this week is I'm going to start today with The Garden of Evening Mists by Twan. And then I will read Chronicles of a Village by Hien, translated from the Vietnamese by Quyen and Nguyen-Hoang. And I should be able to also get to The Ghost Road by Pat Barker. So one of the BookTube events I'm doing this month is Military May, and I'm focusing on fiction set during World War I. So I just finished a novel set in the early years of World War I. The Ghost Road is set during the later years of World War I, and also is more about combat. And then I will get to, at the end of the month, a novel that is set in the aftermath of World War I. And all of these novels are from the Allies' point of view. So that is my plan. So as far as BookTube videos next week, there should be 2 book hauls coming in. So one of the book hauls, I already have one of the books, so I'm waiting for the other book to come in. There's a special reason behind this haul. I'm thinking my next National Poetry Month is going to have a rather blast from the past theme. So I'm working on reacquiring some books that I had in the past to reread them next April. Also have another book haul coming in, and I have no idea when my April manga haul is going to come in, because I have yet to receive an email from Book People saying that that haul has shipped. Although, if it doesn't ship in the next few weeks, they might as well just merge my April and May book hauls together, because already half of my May manga haul is already, or should be already, at Book People. The third, I think, comes out next week, and then the following week is the final part of my May manga haul. But anyway, so expect some book hauls. I don't know if I'm going to do any tag videos next week. I've been struggling with tags, and that continues. And I would also like to do a video on manga and my reading of manga going forward. But I need to think a bit more about that video as well. So anyway, BookTube, until I see you next week, thank you. Have a great rest of your afternoon and have a great weekend. And I will hopefully see you again on Monday. So until then, thank you, BookTube, and enjoy your day.